Hello and welcome to Position Offset. I'm Derek, and today we're going to be talking about E3. What was it? Why did it matter? And what kind of legacy does it leave behind after it? Today I want to talk to you about E3, or the Electronic Entertainment Expo, and what it once was, why it mattered, and now that it's gone, what kind of legacy does it leave behind? And then I'll also talk about my own experiences at E3 back in 2001. So what was E3 exactly? E3 was a trade show where developers and publishers and the press and members of retail would all get together every year and discuss video games. Basically, every year there would be announcements for the newest games, the things that would be coming out that fall, the new console, hardware, accessories, what have you. And up until the modern era, it was the only way that gamers could find out what games were coming up in the future. It was a time for everybody to get excited. So back in the 80s, early 90s, CES was the place that new game announcements would be made to the public. It was a general trade show, and it still exists today. It's quite popular, but video games were not really treated the best there. They were kind of seen as kids' toys still, and they weren't as important as the new TV or the latest microwave. And so in 1995, E3 was born. It would be an industry show just for video games. And it quickly took off to become a big deal for the gaming industry and also to the public. You would see celebrities showing up at E3. There would be mentions in the mainstream media, in regular news about E3's happening today, and these games were just announced. It got the public talking about video games and kind of brought the community together once a year to kind of celebrate the importance of games. During its heyday, E3 would have 40, 50, maybe even 60,000 people at it. It was pretty massive, and it would fill the LA Convention Center every year. Well, not every year. In 2007, the ESA decided to make a surprising call and change to a different venue and said they would reduce the attendance down to 5,000 people. I think it was 10,000 in actuality, but still a fraction of the number of people that used to attend E3. The following year would also have a fairly small turnout, and then it would return to its larger format in the years following that. And now during this time, G4 TV had started broadcasting E3. And so no longer were gamers having to wait a month to find out about the latest thing coming out in the next issue of a magazine. They were getting it in real time as it happened, or at least the same day of. And then eventually YouTube and other streaming platforms would arrive. This would allow developers and publishers to go straight to the audience, and this was the beginning of the end for E3 in reality. E3 had gotten so expensive, there was such a big production. The booths kept getting bigger every year, the lighting and performers that they would book, all these different things, they added up. And Sony was the first company to say, I don't think we're making enough money to justify this cost. And so in 2019, Sony announced they would not be attending E3 for the first time. And this was before the pandemic, which would make things even worse. They would have to cancel one year. They would try to go virtual another year, but it wasn't the same. The show was pretty much ruined at that point, but Sony had already said they didn't care about it before that even happened. And Nintendo and Microsoft would follow suit, and eventually the show would end. And then last year it was canceled, but they thought they might bring it back. And then this year they just announced E3 is dead. There's no more E3. But back before E3 fell apart, it was awesome. And I was fortunate enough to get to attend one. Back in the year 2001, I was working at Electronics Boutique, a retail store much like GameStop. In fact, they merged together. That's why they don't exist anymore. But yeah, back when I worked for EB, I technically counted as someone in the industry. And so that allowed me to obtain tickets to get to go to the show. Now, I had a pretty crazy trip that I'm not going to get too into the details of, but I basically showed up with about $200 on me and no idea where I was going to stay the first night, but it all worked out. I also want to take you through this exhibit guide book that I have still. That was made by Prima. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff in here. Here's the intro letter from the IDSA, now the ESA. Here is some info about the keynotes that will happen. We got some from Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony. There's different workshops and things that are happening. They have different tracks about different topics for game developers and business folks. And they've got some biographies about the different speakers. Quite a few speakers. Then we've got table of contents for a bunch of product listings. It's all huge index. It's an ad, surprisingly, here too. Okay. Yeah, I got different profiles about exhibitors. I guess this was just listed like a giant index of brand names. But yeah, I got different exhibitor listings and details here. Different companies and there. It's like Blizzard, Bethesda, BioWare. We've got maps. The main stuff would happen in the South Hall and the West Hall. Those are the two biggest ones. You'd have all your big names there. Then it's Canaccia Hall. I don't know how to pronounce that. Sorry. But yeah, I think this is where you'd have like the more indie, the smaller companies. I think the concourse might have been like the open area. And then Petrie Hall. I'm not sure what's in that one. I guess Apple had a space there. That is it. The official exhibit guide to E3 2001. Now, in this next section, all the pictures you're going to be seeing are a little crummy. They're from a disposable camera that I used, but these are all pictures that I took. A lot of them got kind of ruined over the years, so these are the ones that turned out usable. They still have some problems. Sorry about that, but these are all my own pictures, starting from this point forward. And so when I got to the actual convention center, it was amazing, just like I'd always dreamed. There was games and people everywhere that were excited about it. I got to play the new Xbox before it came out. I got to see the GameCube. I played Smash Brothers and Luigi's Mansion and a bunch of stuff that people wouldn't get to play for months in reality because it wasn't done yet. It was still being developed. In fact, to this day, I still miss that GameCube controller they used at that E3 because it had a larger D-pad and the handles were bigger and it just fit my hands much better than the actual GameCube controller that came out later on that fall. But it was a big deal. Tony Hawk was there doing flips and stuff on a half pipe. There were musicians playing different things, just crowds everywhere. I got to listen to a talk from Sid Meier that was really awesome in a very small, kind of intimate setting, like a little fireside chat. And then there was even one point where I was sitting looking at a new Xbox game. I can't remember which one it was, but it had awesome water physics in it. The waves just looked really realistic. And I was talking to a couple guys beside me about the whole thing, and it turned out to be two band members of a band that I liked, Orgy. But a moment earlier, we were just gamers talking about games. So it was pretty cool to just have that moment. Oh, and another fun moment was I got to meet Mike and Jerry from Penny Arcade. That was pretty awesome too. The whole experience was pretty amazing, and I'm really glad that I got to experience it back while E3 was still good. So now that E3 is gone, what do we have in place of it? Well, we still get big game announcements at the beginning of June. There's the Summer Game Fest that Jeff Keighley hosts that just happened yesterday. And, you know, all these things, the streams, the different options that are out there now in place of E3, they kind of fill that void. And in some ways they're better, you know. Once again, we don't have to wait for a month or two to find out what was even announced. But we've also lost something in the process. That sense of community, of people coming together, that is not really there anymore, or at least not at this time of year. PAX is basically the closest thing we have to that now. It's the only place I can think of other than maybe Nintendo going on tour with something like they did once. That's about the only way you're going to get a chance to actually get these games in your hands, not just see a stream. And these streams are cool and all, but it's also kind of disjointed, right? Now, rather than having 1 week of focused content, it's a big barrage of things, but it was all in this one place that you could kind of go, like E3 was this thing. Now we've got Sony showing off a state of play like a week or two ago, back while it was still May. There's going to be a Nintendo Direct at some point, but it might be the middle of June for all we know, because you don't even get a schedule. You know, back in the days of E3, there was a schedule, like Nintendo's keynote is at this time, Microsoft's going to talk then. You kind of knew what was going to happen. Now it's kind of a crapshoot, and you're kind of a guessing game up until just a couple days beforehand. And to be honest, I just don't know that I get the same kind of excitement that I did for the current era as I did when E3 was around. Yes, there should be some great games shown. Hopefully there were today while I was filming this from Microsoft. Maybe Sony's got another showcase coming up that we just haven't heard about. Fingers crossed. But still, it's important for the community to kind of rally together and celebrate how much we love games and where they're going. And also, you know, like E3 used to function, it's a way to get people that don't follow games every day to pay attention. But the ones who are hurt most in the modern era are the indie developers. Your big boys like Nintendo and Sony, everybody's gonna go watch their streams. That's almost guaranteed for them. But your small developers, how are they gonna get noticed now? E3 gave indie developers a place to exist. Now, they were often in a back hall, not in the main area where the big budget stuff was happening, but you still could go see them, and they still got attention. Now there are thousands of indie games being released every year, and it's hard to sort through and find the good ones. Hopefully, someone can start offering such a service, and I know some YouTubers out there are trying for sure, but we need to have a way that we get exposure, not just the big budget titles that are going to have huge marketing budgets anyway, but the games that you might not hear about otherwise. And I think that's some of the good that Jeff Keighley's show with Summer Games Fest does. It kind of brings attention to a certain level of developer that may not have been noticed if his show didn't exist. The same thing goes for Devolver Digital's show. Now that's all games that they've published, and you could argue that they publish so many games now, are they actually indie anymore? But there are efforts to bring this kind of grouping of games together that people can go and check out and not be totally overwhelmed with the hundreds and hundreds of games that they could be checking out. But still, things have changed, and rather than just getting things announced all at once and at one point in the year, we get stuff kind of slipped to us all throughout the year. There are announcements made in spring and the fall. Xbox got shown off in December at the Game Awards. You know, there's a lot of avenues for people to get excited and see the latest thing now. And so the last thing I want to think about today is, could E3 ever return? The ESA doesn't seem neither interested nor capable of running it anymore. Is it possible someone could buy the name and bring it back? Maybe. It would cost an immense amount of money, and could they even get Sony and Nintendo to show up? Unfortunately, I think E3 is just gone. But clearly, there's a need for it, And hopefully things we have can continue to evolve to a point where they can actually fill that void completely. Well, thanks for watching my second episode. I'm still trying to figure out what this YouTube channel is and get it all going here. I've got a lot more topics in store and not a lot of time to make it. I'm probably going to be putting out a video every 2 weeks is kind of what I'm shooting for. I do still have a day job, and this is just something I'm doing for fun. But yeah, I'm really enjoying making these videos, and I hope you enjoyed this one. I will see you on the next one. Thanks.